never thought I would have to make this video, but I have to be honest. I was wrong. I was wrong about the pot of greed. Okay, so I have no idea if that intro is going to land or not, but what we're doing here today is that I want to talk about the pot of greed. Obviously, people know pot of greed is one of the most powerful Yu-Gi-Oh cards of all time. If for some reason you do not know what the pot of greed does and are not just fishing for a "what does pot of greed do" joke, well, it draws two cards. Draws two cards and there's no once per turn, so it can be looped as much as you want. Now, that's Yu-Gi-Oh! It obviously got banned in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, but why am I talking about for Rush? Well, if you're living under a rock, you might not realize pot of greed has actually been released into Rush. And for the longest time, people have been saying that pot of greed is bad in Rush. Now, I've been thinking this over so many times. You can see I'm still dressed. I just got home from work. I rushed in because I was like, I have this discussion, this video in my head. I need to get it out as soon as possible before it's gone. So I just threw all my stuff off, tore off all my work stuff, and just sat down and we're recording. So in front of me, just for a little visualization, I have the Miragios deck. This is actually, I'm going to be uploading a Rush rundown for this deck tomorrow, probably. As of uploading, this should be out the day after this pot of greed discussion video goes up. But anyway, so I wanted to talk about pot of greed. Now, when people were talking about Rush before it actually released in any form in the English territories, they would always say, "Fun fact, did you know the pot of greed is bad?" Well, it's never really been bad. People would always say the pot of greed was bad because you would possibly lose tempo and go down on card advantage, because pot of greed would draw you unusable cards, and that would put the opponent ahead of you. Now, of course, that's not always going to happen in practice. What we need to acknowledge is that obviously pot of greed could still just draw you really good cards. But what changes about Rush for exclusively us who play Rush through Duel Links is the format we are currently in. In paper Rush, they have Graceful Charity. They have a whole bunch of other legend spells that do crazy things. We have such a limited pool. As I bring it up here, we have exactly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 legend spells in the game. There is significantly more in paper. What's different for us? Okay, so what's different for us that makes the pot better? Well, first of all, let's take a look at the deck list I have in front of us. Now, this deck is playing pot of greed, and you should be thinking, well, why? We need the card advantage. Now, of course, I just said before that people would argue that pot of greed puts you down on card advantage by bricking you. Well, no, in a deck like this one, where you want a critical mass of guys, it doesn't matter that you're drawing all of them and you're not drawing 5 the next turn, because you need to find these things now. We are also playing a incredibly low amount of spell traps in nearly every deck in the game. Obviously, you have the deck right here. It's a Dragios deck. Of course, we want to just draw guys, tribute summon Dragios and swing, or tribute summon Dragios and swing, or fusion summon if we can. But another thing with pot in this deck specifically is we need to find specific pieces, and that is a through line from other decks that are currently meta in Rush that separates it from paper Rush, where we have skills that'll give us like one part of a combo, or one part of a line, or one part of like a boss monster, and we need to find the other ones. We're also hitting a point where we don't want to be putting back certain cards. So let's take this deck, for instance. This deck does not want to shuffle back big dragons frequently. It wants to have at least one big dragon in grave to resolve a dragon's fortitude. That's just one example. That's just one corner case for this deck. There are other decks. We have this deck here. This is the high-tech dragons. I uploaded a rush rundown on this deck last week. Now, this deck wants guys in grave. It wants to keep them in grave. Therefore, this deck can't play the Pot of Avarice as their legend spell, and we don't really have much of a use for Shield and Sword, Reincarnation, or Tribute. They're not really doing much for us, but what we need is to find a lot of guys. We're playing 2 Tribute guys that we really want to get on board a lot. And then, because we want to resolve the Red Boot Boost Dragon effect, or the Flip Dragon effect, or the Flap Dragon effect, or the Star Replacer effect, to get 2 materials out on board for our guys, we can't be putting them back with Pot of Avarice. We can't be putting guys back for Talismanic Seal Array. So we are playing Pot Agreed to just draw 2 cards with no downside, no cost. And obviously, these decks are game planned for this, right? These decks are game planned for this. But there are other decks out there that also don't want to play Avarice or other legend spells, because what they want is to turbo out their big plays as much and as soon as possible. So for another example, I have Cyber Dragon here. People have been playing Avarice and Cyber Dragon for a very long time, and it was really good. It was so good, you would do your fusion plays, and you would just Avarice all the pieces back, draw 2, and then maybe you drop an Ancient Gear Golem after that. But I switched to Pot Agreed in this deck because it exponentially increased the amount of times I got to see Twin Dragon plus a bigger guy. And that is insane. That is like the game plan of my deck here, is to find Twin Dragon plus a big guy. As well, not playing Avarice means we don't conflict with Talismanic Seal Array anymore, and in fact, decks that still want to play Talismanic Seal Array get to play it, and they don't risk ever having to choose between an Avarice and a Seal Array. There are other decks, like Pot Agreed has been so great. So great for max monster decks. Decks like Maximum Overload here, just because these decks pray. They pray to just hard rip and hard open the entire max monster. They just drop him right on the field. Right? I'm kind of just going off, just kind of rambling, just kind of giving a couple little bits and pieces of why I think Pot Agreed is so good for the game right now, so good to be played in that sense. I'm not saying it's like a not toxic card or anything. Like, I've got a replay for you guys. I got a replay for you guys. I'm gonna stick it in. Let's show you now. Let's stick it into the video right here. Hold on. Let's watch this replay. All right, here we go. So I found this replay. I got this replay. I was testing for my Miragios Rush rundown video, right? And I'm just going, I'm playing, I'm just jamming games. I'm on my lunch break at work. I'm just jamming games while I, kind of play. And I see, oh, cool. I was on a bit of a streak at this point, I want to say. And when I saw the opponent here, I was like, oh, cool. This is interesting. We can try and test this deck against Psychics. The game plan of these decks is actually pretty similar, and we can just go ahead and, jam a game. Originally, I wanted to use this replay for the rundown that I was going to post tomorrow, but when I decided on making this video, I decided to share it. So we're going to go ahead, we're just going to draw for turn. Oh, look, it's Pot Agreed. All right, Pot Agreed, we draw 2 cards, and the opponent surrenders. So the amount of times in testing I hard rip Pot Agreed and then just drew like the exact parts of the hand I was missing was insane. That has actually happened so much now, where before there's actually you can go back to, I don't know the specific off my head video, but there are highlight videos from my streams where I'm playing ranked. I open Pot of Avarice turn 1 and I go, oh, okay, set Avarice, because I can't just leave it in hand. I'm going down on card advantage. And then, I can't activate Avarice because it, there's no guys in grave. It's turn 1. And then what happens with my set Avarice? Oh, it just gets MST'd and dies. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now I don't have avarice. So yeah, I just wanted to show off that funny replay. It made me laugh so much when it happened the other day, and I couldn't find the excuse to put it into my rush rundown of the Miragias deck for tomorrow. So I had to get it in here. It's one of the reasons I wanted to make this video in the first place, just to say, oh my god, look how broken Pot of Greed is. It literally just won me that game. No, but besides the decks that are playable in our format and kind of our format itself deciding that Pot of Greed is good, there's obviously like the elephant in the room that we don't have Graceful. There's other cards that might be better in the legend slot that we just don't have. So part of the reason why Pot is so good is just the critical lack of other options. But I personally think, after playing with Pot, after testing with it since the release of Pot, I think at this point it's probably going to be a mainstay for the Duel Links format of Rush. I think we're probably going to be seeing Pot for a very long time until a possible banning of it. Obviously, they have to release Graceful at some point, and at that point, then Pot's going to be downcycled because Graceful is literally just better Pot, draws more, it puts the grave. The grave is the zone from which we Rhoda, you know? We are always adding from grave, shuffling from grave, sending the grave, all that kind of grave stuff. But at the end of it all, what Pot of Greed's doing for us is it's just making the turbo decks that are pretty much dominating our meta, whether it be Turbo Dragios, Turbo Fusion, Turbo Ancient Gear Golem, Turbo out some kind of secret order play, you know, all those kinds of decks are just going to be lifted and boosted by Pot of Greed. And I really just want to put my thoughts out there and then admit that in every time in my videos where I said, oh, we're probably going to be playing Avarice over Pot at 100 times out of 100. Oh, Pot of Greed just breaks you up, so it's not that good. Every time I said that on my videos, on my streams, I wanted to apologize for those and just let you know I was wrong. I was wrong, and we have the stats to prove me wrong. Now, to wrap up this video, because I don't want this to be super long, it's going to just come off as really dumb and rambly if I just let this be really long. I want to take a look at the Pot of Greed stats as taken from Duel Links meta. Alright, here we are. So this is the page for Pot of Greed on Duel Links meta. Now, if you're not familiar with Duel Links meta, I'd suggest you definitely check this website out. I think it's the #1 resource for like figuring out how to play a Rush deck besides my channel, to be honest. Where when I go to build a new deck, I actually check on here first to see if anyone else has any kind of ideas, and I just go, okay, now I like the idea. I'm understanding from your explanation how to play this deck, but I don't like this. So I just switch those out, and I go, okay, this is better. Let's start testing from here. And then I go, all right, switch these, switch that, switch that. We're not here to talk about how my testing style. But I also use this website as like the #1 like card database. Like, this is insane. They have every card, they unreleased or released. They just have everything here. It's just so much simpler to look up here than on the actual game for cards. Now, the reason I'm bringing here is because what they have here is the popularity ranking. This is based off of the appearance of Pot of Greed and submitted deck lists to the website, because you can in fact submit decks that maybe you hit King of Games, maybe you got a streak with. You can submit that here, and all those stats get compiled, and then we have this, the popularity ranking, and then also the deck usage statistics. Obviously, the numbers don't really matter here because it's 3, 2, 1. We're just talking about the 1 per decks, obviously. But you can also get a kind of idea of what kind of decks are preferring to play Pot of Greed. And you can see, like, these are just the recent ones. It's like I said, it's the decks that are trying to turbo out a specific big guy or a big play, or if they're just like a little bit inconsistent and they don't have the milling capable of fulfilling a Pot of Avarice. But yeah, so you can see that Pot of Greed, despite being released into the game on the 11th of January, which is the month I'm recording and uploading this, that Pot of Greed has already shot up to be the 20th most used card and the 12th overall among spells. Actually, go here, you can see the rest of the breakdown. The Pot of Avarice, which is slowly losing its spot. You can see Seal Array, obviously the at 3-star restart's going to lose a bit of power, and you can tell that what the meta deck, the most recent like meta deck that everyone was playing is, because almost the entire deck is here in the top most popular cards. Yes, here we have the Pot of Greed slowly moving its way up. I wanted to show you this because this is another way we can kind of tell that the quote-unquote Pot of Greed stocks are way up on the rise. Anyway, the rant and rambling aside, the real reason that why I'm here and you're watching this video, because I want to let you know that I was wrong about Pot of Greed, and if anyone tells you that Pot of Greed is bad in Rush, you can show them this. You can show them that we have the stats, we have all the top decks that are playing it, and we have the experience of knowing how good Pot is because of Duel Links' format, release schedule of cards, and the overall game play that the Duel Links version of Rush facilitates. Anyway, that's it for my rambling. Thank you so much. If you watched this video, that was just me trying to just pull all these things I've been thinking of out of my brain and putting it onto a video. Thank you for watching that. If you disagree with me and you think Pot of Greed is garbage, please leave that in the comments below. Other than that, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and see you later. Goodbye.